It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Woohoo! This week, starring the return of special guest star, Mr. Stephen Memel. Yeah, baby. And we're going to talk about home concerts. And thank you, fake band. Thank you, fake audience. Let's see who's in that chat room. Get things going. There you guys are. We've got Jesse J. Peck, Mojo Bone, Neil McTavish. Hey, Neil. Melinda Neal. Ian Shortle. Bob Gunnerfelt. We will write you a song. Hey. Let's see. Alex Dillon. Chuck Sadowski. Wendelin Landers. Darren Moss. Marion Laird. Melinda Neal. Spiritual, Deborah Davis, Glenn Letts, Dean Turner. All right, so hello, Pete Summer, Patrick Adams, Edmund Red. All right, I'm focusing. I'm gonna not spend a month on the names. Sorry, but we got a lot of ground to cover again. So as you will remember, for those of you who were here last Monday. We had Stephen Memel here, who is performance coach to the stars. He's also worked with a lot of Taxi members, trying to help them become stars. Years ago on stage at the Taxi Road Rally, he did a thing with a husband and wife, a folk duo, that blew everybody in the ballroom away in a matter of, 5-10 minutes. He took them from being kind of super talented shoegazers to amazing performers, and that was the day I fell in love with his many talents. So we had him on the show last week, and we talked about doing home concerts because it's a thing, because of COVID. It's definitely a thing. And I felt like at the end of the show, not only did we not get to viewer questions, but it just felt like there was more to talk about. So we decided right then and there that we would, in fact, bring him back this week to talk to him more about it. So he's going to do a little 15-minute recap at the top of the show, maybe introduce a new aspect or two, and then we're going to open things up to take questions from you guys. So if you've got questions, it'd be a really good idea to write them down now. I'm looking for my notebook. Yikes, what did I do with it? There it is. All right. So, got my notebook ready. Hope you guys have yours ready. Say a quick hello to Paul Gerard. Welcome to the live show. Scott Hansen, good to see you, buddy. Michael Smith. Deb and Keith McCall. Martin Gravel. Pierre Venio. And you're right. You've seen a lot of these Facebook concerts, and they all sound terrible. You know what? I saw a great video the other day. I think it was on the Gearfest videos done by, what's the name of the company we all know and love in Indiana that sells gear? They did a virtual thing, and one of the things that somebody brought up on one of their panels was, doesn't matter how good the video is, if the audio sucks, your presentation is going to suck. Sweetwater, thank you. So I take that to heart, and here we go. So let me call Mr. Memel. All right, phone, there we go.
Hello.
Hello, Stephen. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you very well. How about you hearing me?
I think I can hear you very well. Folks in the chat room, can you let me know if you can hear Stephen very well?
Hello, people in the chat room. Greetings. Happy to be here. How is it?
I'm waiting because there's a little bit of a delay. 5 out of 5. All right, we are good.
Okay.
All right, so
Well, hey, Michael, long time.
Yeah, I know. I just did a little intro and I told everybody how incredibly talented and good you are at doing what you do, and that you are the performance coach to the stars, and that you've worked with a lot of taxi members, and gave them a very brief refresher on last week. We talked about home concerts, and that you were going to start out this week's show with a little recap of what we talked about last week, and then and then you said you had something else that you wanted to bring up, and then after that we're going to move on to taking their questions. So here we go.
Good.
So hit us with a recap.
Okay, here's the recap. I think the way I want to talk about the beginning was that we've got a really new situation here. That's been said so many times, you don't even need to say that anymore. But I really like to think of it as an opportunity, because I really think that's what it is for people who are innovative and people who are creative, which is what we all are. That's our thing we do. A lot of other people have to kind of struggle to break out of the box. We live out of the box. So now's not the time to be careful. Now is the time to be carefree and make mistakes, make big mistakes, try things out, see what works, what doesn't work. It's better to show up and really, lay a big goose egg and then fix it, than tippy-toe around, which is just the slowest way in the world to get anywhere. Would you agree with that, Michael?
I do completely agree with that. I've made so many mistakes in the process of bringing Taxi TV to this audience that, you learn from your mistakes and you move forward, because very rarely is a mistake a fatal mistake.
Absolutely, absolutely. And did I talk about being the Babe Ruth of ideas? Did I mention that last week?
I don't think so.
Okay, so here's something I do, because I believe in this make big mistakes thing a lot, and it stood me in very good stead. When I go into, whether it's an executive producing session, or going in with an artist, or wherever I am, film editing, or even a story conference, I make announcement up front, if they don't know me, that I consider myself the Babe Ruth of ideas. And if you know about Babe Ruth, he was the home run king, but something else, one of the other distinctions he had was that he was the strikeout king. And it was because he kept going for it. And I just watched a documentary about him. I highly suggest you watch it. It's extraordinary. But he goes for it. And the reason I do that is because I want to give myself that permission, that room, to come up with every idea that pops up in my head, to give voice to it, not edit myself because it seems off the wall. And so I'll come up with a lot of stinkers, but I will hit home runs, more so than people who are cautious and careful. But the other thing that is so powerful, and this is part of my opening speech to people when I go into creative sessions, is that my stinko idea that everybody tries and then goes, wow, that really didn't work, it becomes the springboard for the catalyst for somebody else's idea that is absolutely brilliant, and that they wouldn't have had if I hadn't laid my egg.
And they should send you a royalty check for borrowing that idea.
That's right. So anyway, really go for it. That's the big thing, the opportunity. Then we went over things like, how you're going to, a lot of gear things. We talked about, which I gave Michael some links, which we may or may not send to you during this show. But
Bria's actually producing the show today, and she's going to slip them in. So, Bria, you can start slipping in those links while Steven's talking.
Oh, fantastic. So this is a small smattering of the kinds of things I can turn you on to as far as the actual gear. There's so much, but these are some of the really hot things, and I can go through them a little bit later if anybody has any questions. We talked about your ability to communicate and really connect with people, that it really isn't that different from what it was, what it is in live event. Of course, live, when you're in a room with people, is going to be different, but there's some great connection that does and can happen if you know how to do that in the virtual arena. And as a matter of fact, I used the example of MTV. Everybody would have given their, first child to do MTV Unplugged when it was the big thing, and major albums came out of that, and it was extraordinary. So it's not just the what they call a poor stepchild or ugly stepchild being virtual.
Right.
That you want to be conscious about what your strategy is, why you're doing the particular show, and we can get back into that a little bit more. But what are the various purposes that you can decide you're doing your particular event for? Is it fundraising? Is it audience just building? Is it actually to sell out of it? So there's many different strategies, and that's going to determine a lot about how you build the show itself. There's enormous different ways we covered, all the way from the group that does concerts through Minecraft to small individual people in their own home, to multi-screen things that people are doing. And I didn't even cover this, but there are people doing from various places in the world, choirs of hundreds of people on streams, and they're not always live, but they are together. We looked at some examples of Luke Combs and his first live streams and how they were attended, his manner, which was not extraordinary, but that led us on to cover a little bit about banter, which I'm happy to do a lot of specific questions about today. We talked about how long your set should be, and really all the structural things. We didn't cover makeup, I don't think, Michael. So
no, but I've got some right here if you need me to hold it up.
Oh, okay, good. And
I can apply it while you're talking.
Lovely. That'd be great. I'd love that. And we talked a little bit about camera angles, but I have a lot more I can say about that. I got some interesting questions over the week, which I'll share with you as we go on in appropriate time. But really, that's pretty much it. We kind of went through the nuts and bolts of how best to do things, but of course there's enormous detail in each of these areas. Song structure, purpose, a set structure, purpose, the visual, and the audio, and just the really, pillars, the pillars of what needs to happen. You always need to be asking, what is my audience seeing? What are they hearing? And the three areas that you really want to focus, making sure that they're in line, is the audio being the most important, video, and the lighting. And we covered lighting a little bit, but obviously there's much more that we can do. So I think that's about it on that. Is that a pretty decent recap?
Yeah, it's a great recap. And I want to talk a little bit about what you and I talked about earlier today, because it ties in also to audio in a moment. People kept telling me, oh, you should check out what Sweetwater did with their Gear Fest. It's like a mini NAMM show that Sweetwater does every year. And this year they had to do it, obviously, virtually. And
right.
So I spent probably 4 hours in total over the course of this past weekend watching bits and pieces, and in some cases full segments of what they presented at Sweetwater. And one of the segments was a drummer doing a clinic, and he made the point very strongly. He said, you can work on your lighting, you can work on your camera, you can work on all that stuff, but if your audio sucks, your presentation is going to suck. So he made the point that audio is the single most important thing, and I'm glad that you just brought that up as well. Also,
you'll find that universal. Anybody who knows anything about live streaming or making videos, even if it's not live, that is the key. People will make a lot more room for the video to be a little bit wonkier, as long as your audio is high quality.
So that being said, and still staying on the Sweetwater thing for a moment, you earlier, just moments ago, mentioned the audience. What do they want from it? So as you well know, one of the keys to great marketing is knowing who your audience is. Not who you want them to be, not who you think they are, but really knowing who they are. And for years at Taxi, the staff, which is generally younger than I am, pretty much anybody is younger than I am, the staff has frequently, especially when we get new staff members, it's like, why doesn't Taxi have more young members? You really need to make Taxi appeal more to like young hip-hop guys, young band guys. And so we've tried various efforts to bring in a younger audience, both on Taxi TV, Taxi in general, and it never really works out for us. And truth be told is our demographic is middle-aged, a broad span, a wide range of middle-aged people from, I would say, 28 to 30 years old up into and including the 70s. And I've always wondered, why is that? And I've come to learn over time that it's because they're more well established. They're probably financially better off and can afford a membership, can afford the gear they need to make the music. They're a little more real. Yeah, the time, the expertise that they've accumulated over a certain number of years. They've probably not lived their dream of being successful in one form or another with music in the past, and now they've got the time and the money and the willpower to come back to it. So that's why our demographic is what I would say middle-aged. So, funny enough, as I'm watching the Sweetwater thing, I realized that almost all the panelists they had and a lot of the subject matter they covered, while it could apply to a younger demographic, it was clearly them performing or putting on a weekend that was geared to their demographic, which is identical to Taxi's. That person I just described is exactly who their demographic is. And you know what? Those people are not tire kickers when it comes to buying gear. They're people who will do the research, then have the money and buy the gear, so they know who their audience is. And so that all makes your point. Great audio, know your audience.
Absolutely, absolutely. As a friend of mine says, you need a message to market match. So as long as the important elements are being addressed, if somebody's 60 years old and knows every single thing that's happening in hip hop before and now, people are going to forget very quickly anything having to do with age, because they just want to know.
Yeah.
And it's just about, can I get the information? And, there are very young people who have extraordinary overviews and can bring great perspectives to things that are very, very current. However, that's more rare, and usually somebody who's been around longer is just going to have kind of a broader, wider perspective, and that's not always the case. I don't want to make that, because I was very young when I was in school. I was several grades ahead, and one of the things I always objected to was people assuming I didn't know what I knew because of my age. But we do know that that's more rare, somebody who's ahead of their time. But I think something else that's really interesting about what you're saying, Michael, about the demographic and why these people end up, the older people end up also being the mentors, is because there's really not a heck of a lot of things that are new. They are, there are trends, but for instance, relationship marketing and all the social media marketing and transparency and engagement and all these things that have become the buzzwords over the last 20 years. I think about 40 years ago, 30 years ago, I was a young pup and I had done an off-Broadway play with a guy who was a very successful producer. And mind you, this is before computers were even in everybody's home. And I said to Seymour, so what's giving you the ability to be so successful in your business? And he said one word: relationships. And that just hasn't changed. And even the funny thing is, because of the massive glut and oversaturation of every possible way of reaching human beings through social media or video or whatever, that's so filled right now. It's so full. So how do you distinguish yourself? Well, the way the big mavens are saying distinguish yourself is by going low tech, pressing the flesh, getting one-on-one, calling people, doing the human connection more, because remember, people tend to think, well, if I just talk to one person, how do I build a big audience? Well, I was taught a long time ago by a marketing mentor of mine that one person is not one person. One person is 200 people at least.
Interesting.
And that's because they talk, and the talk that people they talk to other people, and there really is a ripple effect. And one thing that's surprised me in my career is, though it shouldn't, but it does still, is somebody comes and says, "Oh, we heard so many good things about you." I said, "Well, from whom?" "Well, we were at the record company, and they're naming things that I'm going, I don't want to look shocked."
Right, you're supposed to look like, oh yeah, that happens all the time.
Yeah, of course they did. Of course they are. But really, it's really the kind of thing, and this is one of the most important things I wish I'd had as this perspective when I first started out, is it's a long game. And I made a connection that I'm going to give you, and then move on, because I want to make sure we have that time for the Q&A.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've taught is, or that I still teach as one of the key components of building a career, a really powerful career in this business, is the long game. And in that long game, I used to, if I did a bad audition, I didn't get as many auditions as certain other people for things, because I was an actor too. I don't know if everybody knows that. Well, I still am an actor, but I went out and did a lot of stuff, and I have some stuff out there. Is that I would go in, and if I didn't do a good audition, then I would crisis, and that casting director's never going to call me in again, and I've ruined that relationship, blah blah blah. I just would crisis, which would certainly deplete my energy and my sanity to be able to be more constructive with, all right, next, what's now? And what I didn't realize is that no is the beginning of a relationship. They have to know about you to say no to you.
That's true.
Isn't that true?
Yeah, I wish I'd known that when I was 15 years old, trying to ask girls out on dates.
Amen. But it really is, and God, I won't get into it in depth. I'll just do a brief. I worked on all the Alvin and Chipmunks movies with Justin Long and Jesse McCartney, as I know is a taxi success story, you know.
Right.
But the Bagdasarians, Ross Bagdasarian is the son of Ralph Bagdasarian, who created Alvin.
Mm-hmm.
And Ross is 60 or something like that. Unbelievable shape, beautiful condition. Ross and Janice, they're ex-hippies. But when you hear the story of how Ross just wouldn't take no for an answer from Janice, but he did it politely. He just didn't go away. He wouldn't go away, you know? And now they're happily married for 30 years or more, and they adore each other, and he was just politely relentless.
Right, as opposed to being Harvey Weinstein, which is a different kind of response to no. We're talking about the Ross Bagdasarian, which is, can I please take you out to dinner, versus the other. Yeah.
Or remembering a birthday and dropping by a gift. You know, not intrusive in any way, but present. So it's really about getting whatever no you're going to get, but not disappearing. And that's what most of us do. We, hide our tail between our legs and we feel ashamed or whatever. And not me. Now, the tie-in to this current time is I really have my sights set on doing a tremendous amount more content this year, and just creating a lot more. And especially when you've reached a certain level where you imagine people expect more of you. If I come out with stuff that is me working out exactly what I want things to look like, I had to apply the same thinking to it. I went, well, if them going, well, that really sucks, that's not very good. That's like, and they may not say it to me, they may say it to themselves, or, well, I would expect more from Steve. To me, that's just a no. And I just don't go away. Because you can't get worse at what you keep doing. You know?
That's a great quote. You can't get worse at what you keep doing. I as you were saying this, I was imagining myself trapped in an elevator with you and Bobby Borg, two people who don't take no for an answer.
Right.
That would be really a fun evening. And both of you are successful at what you do. There you go.
And you named the perfect guy, because Bobby is a gentleman like nobody's business.
Yep.
And is very stalwart and steadfast in knowing what it is he desires. Yeah. So I have great admiration for Bobby, really.
And he'll ask the follow-up question, well, if that scenario doesn't work out, let's find a way that is a win-win for both of us. He doesn't let it go. Excuse me. He's not obnoxious about it, but he realizes that a no is not a slam door. It's a slowly closing door that you can put your foot in politely.
Absolutely. And you know what? If they hit you with a no at every even variation you could throw at them like that, which of course is brilliant to bring up because, have some backups, I think is a great thing, that's just more no's. And okay, they didn't like that. And then you go away and you come back and say, hey, I was thinking about our conversation and I understood you felt this and this because of that and that, I think. What if, and so on and so forth. It's endless. As long as you're not a dick, people are willing to hear from you a little bit every now and then. And you will more likely break through than not.
Going back to speaking to one person in relationships, that's what Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour has become for me. We started doing it when everybody went into lockdown because of COVID. And, generally we get about 60 people in the chat room for the live show on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
How many did you say?
About 60.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, we get considerably more in the live show for the Monday show. But the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday shows are unstructured. We could talk about anything from the gophers in my backyard to fishing. And of course, there's a lot of musical and career stuff thrown in there. And I feel such a relationship, such a closeness to those 60 people that show up every day.
Oh, yeah.
That even though I know that my responsibility right now is prepping for the virtual road rally and it's feeling a little overwhelming, and I should probably start doing less of those shows because I need the time back. I'm having a really hard time cutting back on the number of those I do every week because these are my people. It's my virtual family, and I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want them to disband. I feel like the Quarantini Happy Hour is a thing that holds them all together.
And
so,
I bet that doing them, Michael, rejuvenates you at such a level that your work on the road rally is enhanced. I mean, you may cut back a little bit, but
yeah. I'm believe me, the road rally is such an incredible amount of work that every year when I do it, I am quietly mumbling to myself at 11 o'clock at night in the office, I'm never friggin' doing this again. Every night.
I think I've heard that.
And this year I thought it was going to be easy because, it's virtual. I can just do one of these every hour, 8 hours a day for 3 days and go, well, there you go. I know I'll deliver great content. I have no doubt about that. The technical aspect of putting this on is going to be more complex than doing Taxi TV. Not in the sense that we need like studio cameras or fancy graphics or anything. I mean, yeah, we may add some of that stuff just to give it a different look than what I do during the normal shows, but having the reliability factor on a technical level when I'm doing 8 hours a day for 3 days in a row, I can't have a screen go dark. I can't have a camera crap out. I can't have the audio crap out. So I really need to do that stuff and get it right. I feel that way because I feel a responsibility to these people I've built a relationship with. Yeah, it's not for my ego, it's for not wanting to let them down. So there you go.
Absolutely. No. And I think this very intimate thing, I don't know how many people tuned into the Democratic National Convention, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few days. But I think there were some very, very good examples, first of all, of live streaming and the things that can happen. Because what an extraordinary effort it was, and by and large, quite well done. But there were mishaps. There were places. I'll give you two comparisons. So I'll give you two comparisons. I'll compare two things for you. So Julia Louise Dreyfus, who kept getting called by the announcer Julia Louis, something like that, was making some introductions, and she would turn to the person that she just introduced, would turn her back to the camera to be looking at the screen, if it was even there. But she looked awkward doing it. Her timing wasn't right, or she hadn't been coached right, or whatever. But something like that really can be taken care of. And if it happens once, then somebody should be jumping up there right away because there was plenty of time in between and given a cue or whatever. Mm-hmm. In contrast to that, if you want to see, to me, and evidently to the pundits as well, is, and this is not about politics, this is about performance, that Joe Biden's speech, where he accepted the nomination, flawless. flawless. I mean, there's nothing I can say about it except, you know. And when I say flawless, yeah, somebody can say, "Oh, he blinked there." All right, putting that aside, it was unbelievable. If you haven't watched it, I highly, highly suggest you watch it for the purposes of your live stream, because he looks directly into camera and delivers everything directly into camera. His eyes don't waver, but they're not frozen. You don't feel like you're pinned. You feel like you're engaged.
I'm such a jerk that I spent most of the time watching his eyes to watch him read the teleprompter. But I've got to say, it was the best speech that I've ever seen him give.
And that's what the consensus is from
right. Even people who didn't like him, pundits who don't like him, admitted that it was the high point of his career, maybe. Certainly his best speech. So let's fire up the audience. You guys have some questions while you guys are, I know there's a little lag going on with the chat. So I want to answer one that Rick Allen asked a few moments ago. Will the rally be interactive? Yes, it will. We will have the chat open on many, if not all, of the sessions during the live thing. We will also post them in archives. Only taxi members and your guest can see the live show and the archives. We may pull snippets out later and make those public on our YouTube channel, but this is going to be just for you guys. Also I want to tell you that I think I mentioned the other day, but I've been very much in touch with some companies, and I feel confident that I will be hiring a tech company that will handle all the video technology for the rally, and they feel confident that they will be able to give me the ability to do panels with multiple people. So right now I'm saying it's about 80% sure that we'll be able to do some listening panels with multiple talking heads. So there you go. So the first question is from Mojo Bone, and he says, can we talk about gear for live streaming? So Bria, this would be a good time to put those links in the chat, because Steven sent them to us right before the show. I want to mention one of the things that you mentioned in your list of gear was the Logitech Brio camera and the C920. And I used the C920 for several years for Taxi TV and then moved to the Brio. And I've got to say, really, the C920 is much less money and is almost as good as the Brio. The Brio is really good, but it really earns its stripes when you're doing 4K broadcasting, which I'm not.
Exactly.
So I want to let you know that these tech companies that I've been talking to about the Road Rally, I sent them some recent examples of Taxi TV so that they could get a grip on what we're going to do. And both of those guys, 2 out of the 3, have come back to me and said, wow, your video looks really good for a home live stream. And I said, there you go, good lighting, good camera, not that much money, boom.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got a lot of experience. Like I said, you're ahead of the game. So what's the gentleman's name?
Mojo Bone. And he says,
Mojo, can you say what your prime, your most important piece of gear is? Because I can talk about all of them briefly. But is there one thing in particular that holds the most curiosity for you?
He's mentioning in a follow-up, I asked because both of my churches are struggling with providing sound that's as good as we can make it in the church sanctuary. So to me, that sounds like it's got to be a gear or the person running the gear, garbage in, garbage out.
Absolutely. It shouldn't be difficult. I mean, just what you're on there, the Rodecaster Pro.
Right, for my audio.
People are using that in churches as well. And if you go onto YouTube, Mojo, there's a lot of videos you can look for what's the best church setup. And I highly recommend everybody to ask very, straight ahead questions in the search in YouTube, because there's so much information. Just spend your time with the best people, which are easy to find. But yeah, the Rodecaster Pro is a big piece of equipment that's used. Some people are using the Switcher Pro application. Or Switcher, what is it, Studio? Excuse me. Yeah, Switcher.
I've got Stream Deck, which I haven't used yet, but I know that's a very popular, very reliable, and easy to set up and use video switcher. So you can bounce between cameras, you can bounce between live stuff and tape stuff.
Right. So you have a couple of different things. One thing is you have several different things. One thing you have is what is capturing the sound and what the environment is. So depending on how big a venue it is, or big a church it is, you're going to be dealing with different amounts of reflections. One of the ways that you can be, I guess, most certain that you're capturing good audio is by lavalier mics, and they run from $30 to several $100s, like the Sennheiser lavalier mics and some of the high-end ones. But those are going to ensure that you get actually an initial good sound, and you can hear some comparisons between a directional on the camera mic that is a video mic, a shotgun mic, the camera mic, and then a lavalier mic, and you can really hear the difference in presence between them. And the lav tends to do better. One of the other really excellent options that people are using is one of the other ones on my list. It's the Rode Wireless Go. Mm-hmm. That's a very high selection on people's list because it's a wireless microphone system, and you can get that right into whatever you're mixing your sound with. So it's really what you're picking up the sound with, how you're transmitting that, whether by cable, by line, or by wireless. And wireless does very, very well if you have it set up right. And then it's really how you mix it together, how you stream it, and I think for things like, well, Switcher Studio, for instance, is a browser-based, in essence, version of what you're talking about, Michael, which is a Stream Deck, which I love too, the Elgato Stream Deck. And they come in the Mini, which is just a few buttons you have on there, and it's like $99.
Right.
And it's a button, so you can have buttons assigned to different angles of cameras, so you can have multi-camera setup and just hit whatever button you want to get to, or whatever sound setting you want to get to. But the really cool thing about it is that they all have folders, so there's a hierarchy, so you can hit one of those buttons, which opens up a whole nother set of buttons, and each one of the top layer buttons can lead to all those bottom layer ones. And then you go all the way up to the Stream Deck XL, which has, I think, about 20 some odd selections that you can do on it. Now, on something like Switcher Studio, you have really just about infinite variety, also browser-based, which you can actually control from their app. That enables you to do any kind of angle. It enables you to, Michael, that's what I was going to say before you mentioned the company assured you that they could bring in other people, was that with Switcher Studio, you can do that. It allows you to bring in guests to interview, and right. In and out, and it's beyond flexible like that.
One suggestion that I've got from the experience of doing taxi TV and thinking about how I was going to execute the road rally is you do want to have, even though I mean, the software switchers are great. Actually, just using Wirecast or OBS. I mean, you've got
Sure.
different layers of video built right in. You actually don't need an external switcher or switcher software.
No, you don't.
The stuff is built right in, and an audio mixer built right in. But to be the person who's being the charming host and being the person who's the technical director, changing the shots and watching all that stuff, you're going to be doing this. And you can't see me right now, but I'm looking
Right.
around at all my stuff that I would need to do. So you really want to have a second person that knows your program really well and is a bit of a mind reader and can see when you're going to change your angle. If you're playing an acoustic guitar and you're going to move a little bit, that they know this is the time when I should grab shot 2 versus shot 1. That way you don't have to deal with it, because otherwise it's going to look clunky.
Absolutely. And now it did come up, and I hope this is still a little bit applicable to you, Mojo, is that I spoke to somebody over the week who was on Last Taxi TV and wanted to connect about the program I was going to do on helping people find and develop their stream. She said that one of the difficulties is she's a piano player. And so unless she has somebody to do the switching, she really can't do it.
Unless you program keys on your keyboard to, black keys or camera angles.
Well, you actually can, but we all know also we have Bluetooth. And I've been investigating it, and I'm going to finish this up, but I believe that you can assign Bluetooth to do the switching, and then you can have something like an air turn pedal, Bluetooth pedal.
Oh, there you go.
Right. So you can play the piano and switch your angles at the same time. It might take a little rehearsing, but that's a good thing.
I think that's a great idea. As I was considering all this road rally stuff, I said to my wife, it'd be great if somebody had a pedal board like a guitarist would use that controlled all the video. I didn't even bother looking for it, but apparently it exists. So what a great idea.
Absolutely. Well, and Bria will know about that very well, because how many orchestras now are using digital music, and nobody's turning pages. Somebody's hitting a foot pedal to go to the next page. And air turn is probably the most well-known and been around the longest, and they're not expensive. You can get something decent for a very decent amount of money. Now, also, I put in some, I think 3 live streams examples in those links I sent, and one of them is Lady Gaga doing a home concert, and as she's doing the song, you see some really cool camera moves going around, and if like it kind of goes up a little bit, and then it kind of hovers over her keyboard, comes around the side of her. And probably everybody who's watching that is thinking, oh, she must have somebody there doing that. You do not need somebody there doing that. There are cable units that you can set up so that, and again, we're not talking about thousands of dollars. That you can have the camera attached to a mount that is on these cables, and it follows the pattern of the cables.
It's like what they have over the football field during a football game,
Precisely.
The Flycams?
Exactly. That's
Brilliant.
exactly what it is.
Man, I love technology.
Not only that, but you have very short little sliders. They're called sliders that, again, are very inexpensive, and people tend to use those even when they're doing static streams, because though you're not having a big experience of, wow, this is changing angles and everything, there's a sense of movement. It's almost below conscious perception but there's something that's shifting and changing, and so that's very important. So, can you ask Mojo whether that answer was at all helpful for him?
I think you just did. We'll find out as soon as he pops his answer into the chat room. And right
Good.
after that, I've got another question from Robert Orzachowski that I want to go to.
Okay.
Mojo, I'm just damn lucky I did the Troubadour thing. Nope, that wasn't about the question. He wasn't answering your question. Come on, Mojo, pay attention. Give us an answer.
He's gone. He went, oh, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
He's in there.
Okay, good.
I'm just... Man, the lag time is usually it's like 9 seconds. It's longer today, unfortunately.
Well, while you're waiting for that, something I think everybody should consider too when you're selecting what kind of a camera you want is the depth of field and the width of field.
Width of field is very important, I've come to learn.
Very important, much more than depth.
Yep.
And if you're wondering what that refers to, I mean, maybe most of you know, but it refers to how tight in on you on the sides does the camera see. You want the camera to see more around you so that the whole feel of where you are has a more open feel.
By the way, Mojo said yes, you answered his question. Thank you. And I'm going to demonstrate for the audience. The reason that I picked the Brio, and I believe the C90 from Logitech has it as well, it's got a 120 degree wide field, which is that. If you get a camera, there are other cameras that the picture will look as good, but they're 90 degrees. So they're like that. So the reason I had to pick the 120 is very frequently at the office when I'm doing taxi TV and I have a guest, the guest will sit next to me. So I needed a wide enough capture window that I could get both of us in. And we still, frankly, have to sit shoulder to shoulder to do that. But you can also pull the camera back to get a wider shot.
Exactly. And also let me caution people that don't go by simply what the camera says it is, because you can get several cameras, all of which say 120 degrees, and you will see sometimes some very substantial difference. So it needs to be either tested out or researched how much you really get of that 120 degrees.
Well, thank God for Amazon, because you can always return it.
Yay! Absolutely. Okay, now you said there was another question?
Yeah, there's another question. Robert Orzachowski asked, what do you think of adding background tracks to your live thing? I think he's talking about, Robert, you may want to clarify, but I assume you're talking about...
about tracks that fill in, like people are doing at concerts these days, quite frankly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. I was thinking he was talking about having, pre-recorded music in between, like, music under your banter or something, but I think that makes sense. So is that what you're talking about, Robert, using backing tracks with your live performance? So let's say you're an acoustic singer-songwriter, but you want to have a band behind you, but can't get the band to your house because of COVID. So you're talking about taking a rhythm track and bringing that up on its own fader or stereo pair of faders. Is that it? Waiting for an answer.
And Michael, I worked with Halsey, right?
Right.
Okay. She had the full-on band and a great musical director and the whole thing. There still aren't enough people that they want to take on tour to do everything. So there might be background vocals filling it out that they'd want, or some other instruments that they're
or strings. Yeah, rather than bringing a 12-person string section on the road with you, why not bring a pre-record and fly it in off a keyboard?
Exactly.
So yeah, Robert clarified. Yes, he's talking about exactly what you're talking about. Having the rest of the band be virtual, if you will.
Well, I think bottom line is, I think that's a great idea. And one thing, Michael, that you and I were talking about earlier today was the idea of a signature sound or signature style. Um, I tried to include it a little bit in those three different, even though they're very raw uh, examples of the celebrity live streams. They
Hmm.
each are different. You know, Post Malone is showing up, and his band each is in a different place, and it's really like pretty, you know, catch as catch can. The idea is almost to look like it's not. It's like unthought of. It's
Right.
on purpose casual, right? Um, John Legend uh, talks at the beginning of himself. Well, I want you to know I'm in my bathrobe. I don't have pants on, but I am wearing underwear. and and some of this, now this gets back to the engagement because he had done something, and Christy is somebody who came on for a second thing, and she had been in it too, and they had asked the audience to let us know what you want us to do or wear or whatever, and they wanted her in a towel. So she had a wrapped bath towel around herself and her hair up in a towel, and that's how they were doing it. So how much more engaged can you get? And that's exactly what you need to be doing. But you can have a style. So does your style have, as you were saying, I'm sorry, I forgot the name again of the gentleman who asked the question.
Robert Orzechowski.
Robert. Robert, your part of your signature style is to have a more full orchestration, but filled out by all the other tracks. I worked with a great artist who's actually starting to do really well. He's a one-man show, and he's got his whole gear thing around him. This was before COVID, and one of the things he does is he repurposes uh, game equipment to be triggers and controllers for
Wow.
his synthesizer sounds.
Very cool.
Yeah, so he might have a steering wheel, that's doing something, right?
Yeah.
And he had a bit of discomfort. One of the things we were working on is his discomfort in communicating with the audience. He was very popular when he's playing, but his managers were concerned that he would lose the audience in between. And so, I do a kind of a lengthy interview to find out what's going on. And what we came down to is that it works when he's playing because at that moment, it's like he's showing people, he's allowing people to experience what he is playing with. And so we came up with this idea of, well, it's kind of like you're inviting them into your living room, right? Come on in.
Right.
And so we came up with the idea of laying down a carpet, a nice area rug that's got some rich colors into it, and then having an easy chair, so that it really was the communication, the banter was an extension of what he'd be doing if he was sitting there, talking to some friends that we brought over to show his cool stuff.
I love it. Now I'm sorry that when I started doing taxi TV in the quarantinis from my home quote studio, that I didn't think of that. I mean, yeah, you can see my house. And frankly, my family was a little bit freaked out. It's like, we don't want the world to see our house.
Right.
So they finally agreed to let me use this shot because it really doesn't give anything away. Not that there's anything, we don't have any dead bodies strewn around the house,
Right.
or a gun rack in the living room or anything. There's nothing that we're trying to hide. But my original shot showed the kitchen in the background. They're like, no, nobody needs to see our appliances. So
Right.
this was the
Exactly.
shot, and it makes people feel like they're hanging out at home with me. But I was able to keep my Neil McTavish says marijuana plants. Nope, don't have any of those. My
Neil,
wife
you
would.
bad boy.
My wife wouldn't allow it. Trust me, the discussion has taken place.
Oh, right. That's funny.
Anyway,
Well, last night I watched an interview on YouTube of Hillary Clinton with what's his name, Stephen Colbert, and it was a split screen with Hillary Clinton in her living room where she does all her live streams. And just literally sitting in an easy chair was the most casual thing in the world. It wasn't a big, huge, wide shot, so it didn't expose a tremendous amount. But that's, I think, what people. That's when I say the opportunity, right now. That's what I'm talking about. Is that what would feel cool to you? I mean, you're pretty good at that anyway, Michael. If something strikes you, you say, well, why not? Let me go for it. So
going back to Hillary, and this is not a political statement because we don't allow politics on the show, but right. She just got busted the other day. Remember when the Clintons left the White House, there was a kerfuffle about them taking some of the furniture or lamps or statues or something
vaguely,
with them?
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, so apparently one of the things that used to be in the White House, somebody recognized it in that shot on Colbert's show, and it actually made it to Twitter or somewhere. It became a thing for a minute. I thought that was funny as hell.
Oh, that is funny.
All right, let's move on to the next question. And I didn't write down the person's name who asked it, but they said, what about Zoom cameras? Are they okay? I'm familiar with Zoom audio, but I don't know the Zoom cameras.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to say is I want to do one last thing on the previous one, which is with those tracks, what I would say is don't try to hide them. Let them be a statement, tastefully, but explore and experiment. What if I even heighten and take to a greater extreme the participation of what fills out, your own immediate music.
So are you saying something like not just having those pre-record tracks back you up, but doing something funny to call attention to it? Maybe like saying, okay, guys, give me a count off.
Well, you could do that. I was just even thinking of it being there being no attempt or embarrassment about their being used. It's part of the thing,
right?
And that, for instance, you might put something in there that's so clearly nobody's on the screen playing. Like maybe a synth going, who knows, or right. some sonic signature sound that makes more of a statement than just being fill-in, as those things tend to be. And really what it is there's no right or wrong in it. There's an exploration and seeing what is fun. But I do think one of the most important things is do not hide, because especially in this kind of an environment, if you make a mistake, if something happens, we are so much more in the fishbowl. You must see the humor in it yourself, call attention to it, and that's not the kind of call attention to if you miss a chord, go, oh I'm sorry, that's we know that's a different thing, but let stuff happen. Let it be a human experience. You're having the opportunity to be much, much more close to and intimate with. And back to the Joe Biden thing, again, nothing political, but I really felt like the dude was talking to me. I didn't think he was talking to my fellow Americans.
Right.
So that's a great opportunity.
I want to jump in and comment. Somebody just asked a question, then we'll go back to the stuff that I've written down so far. But somebody asked the question: is there a way to bring in like live music tracks, a bunch of different audio sources and the audio from the video into one thing, and USB it back into the broadcast, which is what we were talking about earlier. The Roadcaster, I think, is an excellent solution.
Infinite ways.
Yeah.
I sent you, Michael, that one thing about how he integrates certain things. And in one of his videos, this guy I happen to watch, there's 4 channels just dedicated channels in the Rodecaster. Plus, there's a Bluetooth connection for a phone and a TRS connection for a phone. So that's 6. And then there's also a USB connection to your computer, which goes both directions. So God knows what you can make happen on your computer. And that can all, be mixed down to one damn stream.
I'm showing everybody. I took my camera off my laptop and I'm holding it over the Rodecaster as you're explaining that. And
there's a couple of other units, like the Go XLR was the big thing until the Rodecaster came out, but that wasn't really dedicated for this purpose. It was useful for this purpose that we're talking about, but the Rodecaster is the first and almost, I can't say only because there's probably something out there, but there was another one called the A10, A-TEM, but people are selling that off because it's more trouble than the Rodecaster. I mean, it's just really top of its class right now. And
they even went as far as a problem that a lot of people like me had was creating feedback loops when you're like integrating a phone or audio. You can even take audio off the computer into the Rodecaster and have it come back into the mix that goes out with your live stream. So they really seem to have thought of everything. And
brilliant.
And those colorful buttons that I showed you in the shot a minute ago, those are the things that you trigger different sound effects. You could load songs in there. 8 of them come pre-programmed, but you can remove what's already in there. And then there are 2 more banks of 8 that you can add stuff to. So you've got three banks, 24 things that you can trigger. Like I'm going to trigger that glissando that I just played that you probably couldn't hear, Stephen, but
right, I couldn't. But there's sound effects. There's all sorts of things. Yeah,
it's a great piece
Michael,
of gear.
What was that other question? The next one that came up.
Let's see. Well, Pierre Venio asked best gear to mix live instruments with recorded tracks, and that would be the Rodecaster again.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Edmund Red asked about lighting. Let's do a few minutes on lighting because I've had to learn a lot about lighting, and I'm still not sure I get it really as right as I would like. But tell them what do you know about lighting?
Well, the simplest thing that people tend to do is get one of these inexpensive ring lights that are, maybe $100 for the whole setup, and it's literally, like a small inner tube that's a light. And
I'm showing mine. There you go. There.
Okay, good. You don't have to do much except turn the damn thing on. It does have some controls. Many of them have some controls where you can control the intensity. Some of them you can control the hue, the color a little bit. Some of them you can control with an app, but that's really sufficient. Daylight is still a wonderful solution that even the best people will talk about as a great thing to use, but it's not as able to be controlled and as asynchronous in when you can do it. But those round lights are great. Now there's all sorts of other versions. I think one of the links I put in was about one of the newer NEWER, that's the brand name, LED lights. And there's newer is a very well-known brand, but there's also AC Aperture. There's another company called Aperture, and they have smaller even that are like what are the cards? The index cards type size.
Right. And they're basically a panel, a grid of a bunch of LEDs that can mount on the camera or on a mic stand or something.
Exactly. And there's all sorts of sizes of those. So really, the simplest thing is to take one of those solutions. Now, if you want to go just on your phone itself, and for instance, you're streaming or vlogging or moving, but that's not much of what we're doing. There's even little hot shoe LED panel lights or ring lights that are phone size that you just plug into your phone, and that's one unit that has enough lighting to get a good video. You want to pay attention to things that are just basic lighting things, like look for hot spots on your face. You do want to have hot spot, meaning where it's just very glaring and very bright. You want to avoid that. You are trying to find some good contouring and contrast. For instance, half your face may be a little bit more lit than the other half, which might be a little bit more in shadow.
Yeah, right now, I learned from one of the photographers that shoots the road rally. He said, always put the light not directly in front of your face, angle it. So my light is at a 45-degree angle, and you guys in the audience will note that half of my face is a little darker, so it shows some depth. It doesn't make you look like a washed-out pancake.
Right, and that's referred to as your key light. And then you might, if you want more, because they really are inexpensive, and it depends on how elaborate you want to go, you can then have a fill light after that, which is a gentler light. It might be a soft box. It might be another flat panel that's very tuned down and a little warmer color that makes sure that on that contoured shadow side, you don't have anything that really makes you look grotesque. And then if you want to get even a little bit more creative, you can have something that people refer to as a hair light, which is, again, another flat panel or softbox. You can pretty much use these things interchangeably. It's qualities of light, and unless you're doing a super high-end shoot, use what you got. And the hair light is exactly that. It's up higher and slightly behind you, so that it puts a little aura over your hair and kind of accentuates it and bright. And here's a very low budget trick, which is go to Home Depot.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Go ahead, Michael, take it away.
Get the work light.
That's it.
The $5 aluminum, I mean, it looks like a kitchen utensil. It's 8 or 10 inches wide, and the best part about those is they all come with a clamp on them. So you can put it on the back of a chair, you can put it on a table, you could hang it from your ceiling if you've got, like I'm sitting at our kitchen table and we've got a chandelier above it. I could hang that light on there. And I've used that very thing at the not the road rally, at the taxi office. I've used a work light for years. And the cool thing is now with LED lighting, it's much easier to control the hue, the color of the light. So that's something you should spend some time online learning about the hue. Like my ring light that I just showed you guys a minute ago, I can go from a very orangey, peachy hue up to a bright white hue.
Oh, so you do have that on yours.
I've got the intensity and the hue adjustable. And it's got a remote, which doesn't work very well on mine, so I never use it. But I think it was like $110 for this light, and it comes with the stand and everything. It was, cheap thrill, and it works really well.
And also another thing to remember is that light has such different qualities to it. And as you get more into lighting, you start realizing that there's a certain kind of energy to certain kinds of lighting. So getting that cheapo work light from Home Depot might not just be a budget thing for you. It might be you want some of that particular vibe or energy in that's part of your signature style, is your lighting. And now what I have is I have something that's a little higher end. I kind of got a lucky deal on that, but I have a couple of the Elgato flat panel lights, key lights that
Hmm.
are just they're nice. They're not super expensive, but they're about 1.5 times, what most other flat panels like that. But they have their range of degree of how bright or how dim is much wider, and the color range is much more diverse. And everybody should definitely explore working with green screen chroma key at some point, because I guarantee you there'll be a cool way to use it. And again, it's not expensive, but one of the advantages of this light is not only can it be used for key lights and things of that nature, but it can be bright enough to be used for a green screen light, which where you have to light the chroma key, the green screen, as evenly as possible, so it doesn't show any strange patterns or whatever when you project something onto it.
Yeah, when
Um,
like I know when we do staff meetings using Zoom, and there are certain members of the staff that will put themselves in a beach setting or a nicer looking background than they would normally have.
right, right.
But because they're not lit well, the green screen gets weird and edgy around
Yes.
them. When they move, it looks weird. So yeah,
And also because that's digital, that's virtual
right.
green screen, so you're right, that does have a funky look. But if you look, I put one of the links in there as a whole green screen kit with 10 by 12, I think, and the
Yeah.
green screen, the fabric and the frame and a couple of lights for $109. I mean, you know.
Yep. Bria just popped
Anyway,
the
so I
link
want to
in.
answer the Zoom camera. So, is the person who asked the question asking about uh, the camera made by the company Zoom different the than the Zoom web platform? Because there's Zoom. If everybody remembers the recorders of the H4n, and now they have an 8 thing that looks like a tank, but it's really a full service field recorder and can even be an audio interface. It's fairly recently out and it's beautiful, but I don't know if you want to carry that around. But Zoom did come out with a number of cameras in addition. So what are we talking about here in terms of Zoom?
It's a Zoom H8 that he purchased for live performance. Then COVID came around. So a
Oh
Zoom
yes,
H8.
absolutely. That's good stuff.
Okay,
That's good
great.
stuff. Yeah, uh, Zoom does well. I mean, they just have kept their quality high, and as they've expanded, um, they just keep improving. So you kind of can't go wrong if it serves your needs. And I know people who, even with the old H4Ns, well, Ronan, Michael, he
Right, Ronan
he,
Chris
he
Murphy. Yeah.
yeah, he recorded full albums in Italy in churches with the H4n. You know,
And as you said that, Andre Stepanian, one of our regulars, said, "My Zoom H1N, which sounds like a type of flu, by the way,
yes, it does.
lasted 1 year only. Just stopped working one day, hardly used it. So it's a great device, but it may break earlier than it should."
It could, it could. So anyway, are you okay if I take a second and talk really briefly about this little class I'm going to do, because I've kind of gotten a little bit more clarity about what it is, and I want to make sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. As a matter of fact, we've got 11 minutes left. So if you want to take 5 minutes and talk about that, I'd like to know more, and I'm sure the viewers would as well.
yeah, great. So really, I think I was thinking at first of doing a several week, like 8-week course, where I walked people through the whole creation of their live stream on everything from procuring their gear to working their gear to developing the concept for it, developing their banter, working on their sets, really everything that I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks. So that by the end of that time period, you've got something up and running. Because why do it any other way?
Right.
Now, I think what I may do though is do a one-time weekend where it's maybe 3 hours one day and 3 hours the next day, and a little lower cost to see how people enjoy it, what they're looking for, and then for those who may want to go on, open up the class after that. But if a lot of people expressed interest last week, only one person reached out, and that's okay because everybody gets busy. But I'm very serious about doing this, and I really, if you want to live stream and you're not live streaming, now's the time. If you want to live stream and you are live streaming, but you're dissatisfied with how it's going, even questions that we can solve, like the young woman who had issue with the piano and controlling. We problem solve like that. We find a foot pedal. We do what needs to be done to create your signature style, how you communicate and engage with your audience, how you promote even to get people to your live streams. In a weekend, we'd be doing some pretty fast going through that.
Right.
In an 8-week thing, we do it more modularly. But I would need a certain amount of people in that to
make
launch
it worth
that.
Yeah, you want to make it worth your while. You don't want to do it to an audience of 2, that's for sure.
Now, I'm going to suggest something to everybody right now, which is open up an email, and just if you want to be on my email list, even for notifications, because somebody told me the capture on my website is down, and I've got to get that fixed. And later is not a good thing. So open an email right now. Right, Michael?
Yep,
open
absolutely.
An email right now. Send me an email and say, please put me on your list. And then also, if you have interest in hearing more about the class, and really, don't wait. Now's the time, and you want to take some action, and you'd feel good. I mean, imagine how you'd feel if you really had a live stream up that you could be proud of, and really felt that it represented you, who you were, what you stood for. I mean, that would be a great thing. So please.
Which email do you want them to? Stephen@stephenmemel.com?
Correct. Yeah. So.
Okay. Stephen with a V at Stephen Memel, and that is MEMEL. Stephen@stephenmemel.com.
And Michael, I deliver when I tell people I'm going to help them do something.
Oh, absolutely.
It goes all the way.
Yeah, he delivers better than Domino's.
Did you make that up?
On the fly, dude.
Come on. Are you seriously?
I'm totally serious.
Dude, that is good.
Look, I've got a talk show going live all over the world. It's a requirement to be naturally funny.
Yeah, we need some thumbs up on the chat for that. I wish I could be watching the chat, but I'm on my cell phone sitting here, and I guess I could be, but my computer's all fakakta. I got my new iPad 12.9-inch iPad Pro coming in 2 days. Yay!
Nice.
Yeah.
I just used my
stream on that if you want to.
I just used my Roadcaster to fly in a little applause and laughter after my on-the-fly joke.
Oh, it's brilliant. It was brilliant. I think it's going into meme territory. I don't know, but yeah. So anyway,
Oh
any
man.
other questions, or are we
Yeah,
done? Or
we've only got 4 minutes. Dog and Pony earlier asked about mixing, but once again, I mean, I'm an audio engineer by trade. I'm an audio, I went from doing records for like 12 years to then doing audio post at a very, very high level. And the Rodecaster is what I chose. It ain't cheap. I bought an open box job that was $508. I think it's normally $599, but the reviews on this thing are off the chart. It gets like a 4.85 average review, or number of stars. So I'm giving it my personal endorsement. I'm just getting to know it, and every day I'm finding out. I understand everything it does. I didn't understand how well it did it and how easily it did it. It's got
yeah,
four mic inputs with 48 volt phantom on it. It's got a USB input that you could bring anything. You could bring an iPad into it, who knows, whatever. You could bring another mixer into it via USB. It's got the phone jack, so you can bring stuff in on an 1/8-inch mini. It's got a Bluetooth fader, so I could Bluetooth my phone. I'd rather go down a hard wire, and I also have an issue with my car being 20 feet away in the garage. I bought a plug-in electric. It's a hybrid, so sometimes the car turns itself on like when it's done charging for a minute, and the Bluetooth goes on in the car. So if I'm doing Bluetooth on the show, all of a sudden you guys can't hear me because it's going into the car. So that's why I'm doing the hardwire. It's also got 4 discrete headphone outputs. So if you were doing a legit audio only podcast where you had 4 people in a studio, everybody on their own boom mic and wearing headphones, you can give them a feed that works for them.
yeah.
So it's
And I'm
great. I
sure
love
this
it.
is kind of obvious, but also everybody. I want to remind everybody to make sure that if you have your audio um, coming back in, you're monitoring it. Don't do it. Make sure you have headphones on, because
Right.
you don't want that bleeding into your feed. Okay.
Yeah, one problem I've got is I did a ton of research and found that the Sony wireless headphones are supposed to be the best. And they're a little pricey, but not horribly so.
What are those, Michael? What's the number on those?
Let me see. I'm going to grab them. Yeah, I'll be right back, you guys. I got to walk around the table to get them.
Also about the mixing too, I really would look at things like the Switcher Studio, and there's a number of other
Here I am. I'm back.
solutions.
Okay.
Go ahead.
They are. It doesn't have the model number on here, but they're the only Sony wireless headphones.
Okay.
They come in a little charging case. You pull them out, they automatically turn on.
Right.
And people just rave about them. So I have not been able to successfully integrate these into my whole thing that I'm doing right now. But ultimately, for the Road Rally, that's what I need. I don't want, and it does have a microphone built into one, but I don't want to have this wire hanging down during the Road Rally. So I want these wireless headphones with the microphone built in so I can do this sort of interview.
I got something for you. But
yeah.
I'll tell you later.
Well, you've only got 2 minutes, so tell me now.
Well, okay. I just wanted to finish. I was talking about the mixing. So the person was asking about the mixing. Don't make sure you consider how somebody can mix for you remotely, because so much of that is being done. I had a film shot of me where everything was mailed out. People who were on last week heard me talk about that. A whole camera setup. I set up 3 cameras here being guided over the telephone, and then they controlled remotely from Canada.
Wow.
Yeah. So
did they have to turn off the hockey game?
Unfortunately, they did, or so they told me. Anyway, Michael, there's so many adapters in reference to what you were talking about that can take IVR or Bluetooth or whatever. They're adapters that can plug into certain audio outlets like a 8-inch mini or a phono or whatever
Right.
that will receive the signal from something wireless, and then can integrate it through that adapter into your Rodecaster. I don't know exactly one specifically. I know it's done a tremendous amount with Bluetooth. So, if nothing else, you can use your Bluetooth on that for the wireless.
Yeah. Every scenario I've been able to think of that might happen during the virtual road rally, it looks to me like the Rodecaster can solve the problem. And actually, one of the tech companies that I talked to about being my technical director during the road rally was telling me, oh, yeah, I've got a whatever kind of mixer. And I said, oh, I just recently got a Rodecaster. You'd be welcome to use it. And he went, well, you could tell he was thinking maybe it wasn't all that pro, because this guy's kind of an equipment geek, as you might imagine. So I sent him a link to it and some reviews, and he checked it out and he wrote back. He said, so if I get the gig, can I use your Rodecaster?
That's great. That's great.
And it's great. It's got great sounding preamps in it, by the way.
Oh, everything. It's really top notch.
Yep.
And I just want to say, thank you everybody for joining us. And if you have any questions, feedback, anything, I'm interested in what you'd like to hear more of. If I ever do it again, all that kind of stuff.
If you enjoyed today's show, give us a like. And also, if you have questions for Stephen, he did go in and answer a couple in the comments under the last show. So, Stephen, are you okay with that if people put in a few questions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I hope there's many questions. I will answer whatever anybody puts in. So I'm happy to be there. That's what this is about, helping you to get your stuff done. That's it.
Awesome. Well,
and Michael, thank you again for having me. Really,
man, thank you. Well, I appreciate you appreciating me, but the level of professionalism that you bring to the craft of presenting anything is so good that I'm amazed, frankly, that you know so much about so many different aspects of presenting yourself as an artist, as an actor, as a talking head, as anything. You're not a one-trick pony, is what I'm trying to say, and I really appreciate that about you. So I want to say thank you. Once again, his website is stephenmemel.com. Please, if you have any follow-up questions, put them in the comments under the archive video, which will be up in a few minutes. I want to let you guys know that I am probably not going to do a Taxi TV next Monday. So I will see you, though, tomorrow and for the rest of the week on Taxi Quarantini Happy Hour on this channel, 4 o'clock Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And probably not do a Taxi TV next Monday. We'll let you know via email for sure. And with that, thank you, Stephen Memel. Thank you, audience. And we will see you guys tomorrow on the Quarantini Happy Hour. Until then, have a good night. Over and out. Bye, you guys. Give me a fader and I'm happy.